Mystery and Deceit from Earth to Mars. Book 1 of Chaos's Orbit Saga. Written by James T. Hall. Narrated by Chris Pullman. Episode 14. Discovery of Success. Part 1. "Mang, you son of a bitch," I exclaimed, shaking his hand. "How've things been?" "Things have been okay. Business is good and I'm doing well," Mang replied, returning a firm handshake. "James, my old friend, how's life?" "Not bad," James said in his typical, understated way, shaking Mang's hand. "Melinda, lovely as ever," Mang said as he pulled Melinda into a gentle embrace. "You old snake charmer," she replied. "Now I remember why all the women at the project called you Trapper." "Good to see you again, Mangy," Melinda said, a smirk in her voice. "Watch it," Mang said as he pulled away from the embrace, a smile on his face. "You know I never liked either of those ridiculous nicknames. And Adam, how have you been, my man?" Mang grasped Adam's hand, pulling him into a quick bro brace. "Not too bad, dude. Getting by. Heard about some trouble off Africa's northeast coast. Something about the UN patrols coming across a boat of pirates all tied up with zip ties. Said they'd been... How was it phrased?" Adam said as he pretended to search his memory for the answer. "Ah, yes. That they had been brutally attacked by 4 Americans while conducting business with the ship's crew. You wouldn't happen to know those 4 Americans, would you?" Meng's face took on a mock air of seriousness as he said, "I cannot confirm nor deny involvement with such an incident, but am sure I have no idea what you're talking about," finishing with a grin and a wink. "So, my friends, is there somewhere we can go to talk that would be a bit more comfortable than standing, and perhaps a bit more private?" "Yeah, sure. The company's conference room shouldn't be in use today, right?" James said, turning toward the receptionist, Jeannie, for confirmation. "Right, James. The DOD meeting isn't for another 2 days, and nothing's on the book until then." "DOD," Mang whistled. "Bit of a risk considering your background, isn't it?" "Not when all the generals from back then have been promoted out of the pool of ones we'd be talking to. Made sure of that before we put in the bid," James commented slyly, leading the way towards what passed for the second floor where the conference room was. Having grown enough over the years to actually begin selling products under our own company, we'd expanded the facilities from the original industrial drab steel frame and siding building where we had started out. Now our company's research wing took up twice the space of the original building, wings perpendicular to each other. The fabrication facility went off the other way from our original facility and gave our complex its somewhat distinctive aerial T-shape. The atrium had been built in the best practices of medieval architecture with modern updates. Height and light provided by plasteel framework, our own blend, and floor-to-ceiling transparent walls, another proprietary material we had perfected. It gave the atrium at once an industrial yet welcoming feel. Clean, precise, measured, and purposeful. Going up the wide, rounded staircase to the conference room, an attached wraparound balcony, one had a view over the entire complex, even the on-campus apartments tucked into the woods toward the back of the property. "Nice place you have here, James," Mang commented as we climbed the stairs. "A bit more civilian than the project facilities, yet tastefully Spartan." "Most of this new stuff," James said, holding open the conference room doors while motioning outside through the wall windows, "was built using materials we invented, much stronger than conventional materials while also being vastly more energy efficient. Even with the appearance of windows all over, those walls have the lowest heat transfer rate of any material on the market today. Allows us to stick more profits back into R&D instead of heating costs," James finished, entering after me and letting the door swing closed behind. "We have a fully stocked bar up here. Get you anything, Mang?" "Sure. Johnny Walker on the rocks, 3 fingers," Mang replied. "So," began Adam, half sitting on the room's sizable table, "what brings you down our way? I should think that you'd have better things to do with your time than come here personally to talk shop." "Well, not that I don't, but you really aren't too far off the mark." James handed Meng his scotch, sitting down next to Melinda. Meng continued, "We'd been researching companies for equipment, specialty equipment. I think you at least," he pointed to Adam with his drink hand, "would understand why, if not all of you." "Salud," he said to James, taking a sip. Finest kind." "You're in the anti-pirate Anti-terrorist business, I commented from my seat opposite James. And if you're sticking with a 4-person crew, means you need the best equipment. That, at face value, is dead on, Meng responded, circling the table while admiring the view outside. But there's more to it than that, and that more is why I'm here. He stopped his pacing, facing out toward the company's entrance drive. What do you think that more may be, Melinda? Meng asking Melinda shocked us all a bit. We assumed that Meng's more had something to do with a larger or more involved operation. Adam was always the one who kept current as far as events in the world at large. Neither James nor I were as politically centered as Adam, and Melinda even less so than either of us. So to ask her about strategic reasoning was tantamount to asking a car mechanic about the inner workings of a jump jet engine. Yet Meng's question hung in the air, clearly spoken and as clearly directed only at Melinda. After trying to discern some meaning from Meng's look, James turned to gaze at Melinda. Not really expecting her to have an answer to Meng's question, he was at least looking for a reason why he had asked her. Why should I? Melinda began again, looking around to us and shrugging her shoulders. I don't know. You may not personally know, Melinda, but you know that the answer is there, Meng said in a taunting tone. We again looked to Melinda, who simply looked to each of us in turn. Think about it, Meng continued. You can feel that you should know the answer. We kept looking to Melinda, who suddenly seemed uncomfortable, looking as though she had been caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Meng continued, You feel like you should know, but you know you shouldn't. You want more information, more facts, yet know all you need for knowing is already within reach. So tell me why I'm here. It was more than a request, yet less than a demand. It was an order. Search your mind, and within it find the vault of truth. Open the vault, and within it find a package. Open the package, and within it find what you seek. Meng seemed to chant that from memory. Meng, what do you mean that she should, James began, stopping when Melinda placed her hand on his arm. A look, both quizzical and introspective, was on her face then. Meng turned his head enough for us to see that he was smiling. That's it. Within the mind, the vault. Within the vault, the package. Within the package, knowledge. He slowly brought his glass toward his mouth. Just before he took a drink, he paused as Melinda said, The project worked? Within knowledge, understanding, Meng said, taking a drink, then clasping it behind him and turning to face us. The project worked. Of course it worked, said Adam, until it failed. Those test marines exhibited superhuman abilities for 8 missions before they disappeared. And because of the government's over-reliance on a technology, on abilities we said wouldn't last, there are now 6 more dead marines on this Earth. Meng's smile betrayed a hidden knowledge. No, Adam, you're wrong. For them, it unfortunately worked until it failed, Meng admitted with a head bob. But as far as the actual goal of the project, that succeeded. Isn't that right, Melinda? He snapped his gaze to her with the intensity of a soldier in combat. James, jumping up in response, said, Stop it! She doesn't! But was again interrupted by Melinda's touch as she rose to stand beside him. It worked, she said matter-of-factly. In us? It worked in us, Meng echoed back confidently. There's something in that statement that's a game changer if it's true, isn't there? Meng asked, all of us now standing. It means that what all of you sought to do and the methods you used were valid. It means that the literal superhuman is possible. And more than that, it means that all this, Meng motioned around at our defense, is now caught in the shadow of an even greater achievement, a potentially more powerful weapon than any you'd yet conceived. And all still alive and doing well inside 8 very specific humans. Meng let his words once more hang as he looked at each of us. I'm going to go. For now. But I'll be back in 3 days. After, with a lilt in his voice, your little meeting with the DOD. I think you'll find it less than the rewarding experience you had hoped for. Until then, Meng said, finishing his drink and setting it on the table. You four stay and talk, he said, turning and walking toward the conference room doors. I'll show myself out. None of us responded. None of us could respond. The implication of what Meng had said was earth-shaking, of what Melinda had said. The thought must have occurred to both James and I at the same time. He turned to Melinda. Hun? What? Just now, Meng managed, gesturing over his shoulder to where Meng had been standing. I'm not sure, Melinda said, staring into James' eyes. Still extant on her face was confusion coupled with some fear. What he said, how he said it. It's something that I came up with once in grad school. Whenever I felt I was close to an answer but was having trouble finding it, I'd chant it in my head to keep me focused. I've never told anyone that, but how he said it. It was dead on, cadence and all. Melinda momentarily closed her eyes, shaking her head as though to clear it. James reached for her and held her arms, and she his, and she continued, but him saying it, something became clear, but not like usual. When I find an answer to a problem, it always feels like it came from, she said, sweeping her gaze to briefly include all of us, from inside, from me. This felt like, her brow furrowed in further confusion, disbelief. What did it feel like? James said as he hunched over, forcing his eyes to meet hers, even as her head was now downturned. It felt like it came from Meng, Melinda managed. She wasn't making an offhand remark. She literally meant that the knowledge that the nanites had worked and were still working had come from Meng's mind rather than hers. But how can he know, even if it's true? I asked. James stared into Melinda's eyes, exchanging information with her as only those who know each other the most intimately can. The twitch of an eye showing deep consternation, the slight tightening grip of a hand reassurance. There's one way at least to know if he was giving us a line or not, Adams said, staring toward the company driveway as Meng had done. It'd be as simple as a blood test, he added, turning to face us. Instantly, we all knew the truth in the statement. If we had yet active nanites within us, they would be visible in a blood sample, clear as day. My lab has all the equipment we'd need, I offered. Everyone nodded in agreement. We silently walked out of the conference room, down the stairs, past Jeannie at the reception desk, giving her only the slightest nod. Your lab is clear, Eric, she said. We all stopped. Pardon? I asked. The gentleman you were meeting with? As he was leaving, he said, you asked him to tell me to make sure your lab wasn't in use, that you needed it for something. I had Charlie go and organize your research. He took it down to Lab H. Meng had told her we'd need the lab? Had he anticipated that this would be our next step? He also left this, Jeannie said, handing me a business card. It read simply, Tactical Assistance Organization, with We'll be in touch, handwritten at the bottom. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jeannie. I took the card and we continued for my lab. Thinking as I went, it occurred to me that, first of all, what I had been working on was at a point where it would require the attention of a full team. A task my main lab wasn't designed for. But also, that we wouldn't want anyone intruding in what we were doing. Having an active research project alongside us could bring in other company scientists or assistants. Meng had done us a favor and cleared the way for our test to be done in secret. Melinda, realizing there was something different going on with her, volunteered to go first. We took a sample of her blood, put it on a slide and under the microscope. On the wall display, after magnifying several times, we saw what we had both hoped would be, and wanted there not to be. Nanites. Measuring a mere 1/20th the size of red blood cells, our tiny machines still showed up under sufficient magnification. James, Adam, and I made up slides of our own blood after seeing the truth of the matter before us. One by one, we put the slides under the scope, and each time found a small battalion of nanites floating around on the slide. How? Asked Adam, breathless. That indeed was the question of the hour. The Marines, the ones who were targeted to bond with the nanites, lost what enhancing abilities they had been granted by the hive mind nanomachines. Our calculations, James began, pausing. We were sure of them. Weren't we? Sure enough, I said. At least to go ahead with live testing. So were our calculations off? Melinda asked. Containment was breached, so we really don't know, Adam added. Yeah, containment was breached, said James, beginning to pace. But there's something else there. We have viable nanites swimming around inside us. My stomach involuntarily constricted a bit at the thought. Those in the Marines failed. However we were bonded to the critters is the true answer to that equation. He was right, of course. Isn't it a bit impractical, though, to blow up another lab facility to get the correct levels? Adam asked, tongue-in-cheek. We all smiled at that. Perhaps a bit, James said through his smile, but the message is clear at this point. Somehow the bonding worked on us. The concept worked. That feeling of cold spreading over my body and down into my lungs, a sensation that was still painfully vivid in my mind, now made sense. It was the nanites bonding with us, their hosts. The nanite slurry somehow adapted to the environmental factors and, more or less, crawled along our bodies until they found the best opening by which to form a bond. Our mouths. So, I began, why haven't we exhibited any enhanced abilities yet? Maybe we have been and we just don't realize it, James commented, his pacing speeding up. I mean, all of our research has been going at a lightning pace, hasn't it? Part of what we sought to enhance was intellectual capabilities in general, innate abilities specifically. So, what do you think these enhanced innate abilities look like? Asked Adam. I'm thinking, aside from being unique, that's something we each have to figure out for ourselves, basically, I added. Meng must know what his gift ability is already, Melinda said. It would make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, this must have been his plan, to get us to realize not only that our nanite bonding had worked, but also that we had powers beyond normal humans. The very gifts we sought to imbue the Marines with in order to make them into super soldiers. He has to know, as do the others he works with. So what? Are we hoping he can help clue us into what we should be able to do, Adam asked? Or are we thinking that each of us has something so unique that we're just going to have to poke around in the dark until a light flips on? Since all the nanites have the same base code, there has to be a common in-route to what we now possess. Once we know the path, it should be easy to follow no matter the individual, James said, halting his course. But perhaps a more important question for now is whether or not we can take what we know, coupled with what's inside of us, and reverse engineer a duplicable, successful process for further nanitic bonding. James had a valid point. While 8 people with enhanced abilities represented a force to be reasoned with, a company of them could be nearly unstoppable in its own right. Having programmed the nanites to integrate with the host nervous system and protect the host, it was possible that nanites could adapt to serve a multitude of unintended and unimaginable functions beyond simply enhanced human abilities. Well, I said, we were looking for a new project, and it will apparently be 3 days until Meng comes back. So why not start taking a look at this? How would we go about it? Adam asked. The variables and equations are already too complex for most people to understand. To bring together a team cold on this would be nearly impossible in a short time frame. For quickest results, it has to be us. Only us. But pulling us all off our main projects would certainly raise a few eyebrows, Melinda commented. Exactly what I was thinking, Adam said, rubbing his head a bit while continuing. If we wanted to jumpstart this thing, we're going to have to make it a white project, completely off the books. It'll mean long nights and little sleep, especially until Meng gets back. Maybe longer. We will eventually have to start bringing more people in on the research, I said. They could begin with some of the base research, like trying to extract nanites from a blood sample and replicate them, Melinda said. It would advance them toward a position where they could slowly be exposed to the theory and equations behind the nanite process. Just what I was thinking, I commented, my head aching a bit suddenly. But for now I agree with Adam. We need to focus on some quick analysis. James and I can take on the biological end. I can put time into analyzing the conditions and data we still have from that night, Adam offered. Melinda added, and I can start looking at the nanites themselves. Begin running some base tests to see how they've adapted to the symbiosis and what new, unexpected traits they might be exhibiting. Again, though, how do we cover our absences with the rest of the staff? Adam asked. It's simple, said James, playing with his bottom lip. We have the DoD people coming in 2 days. We're simply putting extra time into our presentation for them. It would be, after all, the largest contract we ever managed to land. Speaking of that, are the presentations ready? I asked cockily. Yeah? Been done for a week, James replied with a wry grin, waving off the notion that they were anything but ready. Okay. Sounds like we have a plan. So who's giving blood for the greater good? I asked in my best vampire voice. Mystery and Deceit, From Earth to Mars, Book 1 of Chaos's Orbit Saga, written by James T. Hall, narrated by Chris Pullman. Episode 14, Discovery of Success, Part 1. Visit us online at www.narclaninc.com to link up with us.